At the end of the last video, I had mentioned that we don't really have the ability to verify that the request was created easily. However, I realized that's not entirely true. If we actually go back to our campaign show page and look up the current campaign that we're looking at right now, we should see that our number of requests has been incremented to 1. So if I go back to our root page by clicking on the logo here at the top, I can then see the current campaign that we're working with. I'll view that campaign. And then once I'm looking at this thing, I should see that I have 1 pending request now. So 1 pending request means that our request was just successfully created. So I think it's working out correctly. All right, let's go back to our request list page. Here's the request list, and I want to go back to the form that we were just working on. In this video, we're going to add on some additional elements to this form just to make sure that it works like our other ones. So in particular, we're going to add on the error message handler and our button spinner. At this point, this is going to be the 3rd time in a very short time frame that we have been working on this error message in the spinner. So I just want you to know, if you don't care about working on this form anymore, you can absolutely just skip this video and go on to the next section, where we're going to start working on getting our list of requests to print on the screen. So again, if you don't care about doing this extra stuff for the form, then just continue on. Okay, so if you're still here, I'm going to assume that you want to finish up this form with me. So let's flip back over to our code editor, and we're going to put the rest of this thing together. I'm inside of my request new component. We've already imported the message component right here, and we've already placed our button. And those are the 2 big things that we need to be aware of, because we're really focused around placing the spinner on the button and our error message. Okay, so let's first start off by adding on our 2 extra properties to our state object. We'll set up loading as false, and we'll also set up our error message as an empty string. We'll first take care of our spinner on the button. So we'll go down to our render method. I'm going to find my button, and just as before, we're going to specify the loading prop as coming from this .state.loading. Then inside the onSubmit handler, we'll update our setState calls. So here's our onSubmit. As soon as we enter this method right here, I'm going to immediately attempt to update this .setState. We're going to do loading to true, and I'm also going to reset the error message if one has already been set on this component. So I'll set error message to be empty string, just to clear the existing error message off of there. Then inside of our catch statement, we'll take that error message and set it back on. So we'll do this .setState. We'll take our error message from error.message, and we'll also flip that loading flag to false. And you know what? Actually, we don't have to do that here. We should do that outside, so we only have to do it 1 time. That would be for the best. So I think inside of here, yeah, we just really want to do that error message. So then outside, we can do this .setState, loading over to false. Now, one last thing that we need to be aware of here before we go take care of the error message down inside of our render function, we need to make sure that after we successfully create a new request, we want to navigate our users back to the list of all requests. So we've already imported our router helper from routes right here. So let's make use of that router helper. Immediately after we successfully create the request, we'll do a router.pushRoute. And then we're going to do backticks. Again, don't forget backticks here. Real easy thing to miss. And we'll take our user back to campaigns, this .props.address/requests. So they can go back to that page and look at the new request that has been created. All right, I think that's it for our form handler. Let's now go back down to the render method, and we'll set up the error message handling. So let's make sure that we add our error property to the form. So we'll say error is going to be exclamation, exclamation, this .state.error message. And we'll set up the message component itself as well. So right above our button, here we go. We'll place our message. And I always forget the names of the properties that go on this thing. All right, we want error. We want the header of oops, and then the content of this .state error message. And we'll close off the message tag. Okay, I think this is good. Let's flip back over to the browser and do a quick test. So back over here, I'll do a hard refresh of the page. I'll then immediately click on the create button. When I do that, we get an error message. That's good. And then if I do a description of something, a value in ether, let's do 0.001 again, and a recipient of, it doesn't matter. Let's just see some error messages here. I can then click on create. You'll immediately notice that, okay, provided address is not valid. That's good. Let's get a valid address. So I'll go up to MetaMask, and I'm just going to copy the current account that I have selected. So this is my account 1, and I'll paste that in as the recipient. So now if I create, you'll notice that error message goes away. I get my spinner successfully, and now if I click on reject, I get my error message here again. Okay, so I think this looks pretty good. Now there is one last tiny little thing that I would really like to have. I would really like to have a link at the very top maybe to navigate our users back to the list of requests. So let's add that in very quick as well. So right above our H3 at the top, here's our H3. I'm going to add in a link tag. And remember, we've already imported this thing once already. We imported this at the top when we got our router helper as well. I'm going to put an anchor in here. I'll put in a button. I'll mark it as primary. And I'll just give it the text back. And I'll make sure that I set up a route on the link tag itself to take the user back to campaigns, this .props.address requests, like so. All right, so let's save this and test this out. Last piece. So back inside the browser, we get the button there, and you know what? That is darn ugly. I think a button at the top really is not going to cut it. So let's just remove the button. Let's just make it a clickable link. So I'm just going to take this entire button right here. I'll just replace it with the text back. So now we'll have a simple anchor tag. Yeah, okay, that's much more reasonable. So now we can click on back right here, and it will take us back to our list of requests. And of course, we can click on add request, back, add request, back. Okay, cool. So I think that we've now wrapped up our form with a little bit of extra polish. So let's take a break, and we're going to start working on our last big component, which is our request index page, in the next video.